Welcome to How to Decorate from Ballard Designs, a weekly podcast all about the trials and triumphs of decorating and redecorating your home. I'm Caroline, I'm on the marketing team.
And I'm Taryn, and I'm a product designer.
I'm Liz, I head up the creative team.
We're your hosts. Join the expert team at Ballard Designs for tips, tricks, and tales from interior designers, stylists, and other talents in the design world.
Plus, we'll answer your decorating dilemmas at the end of each episode.
We love answering your questions, so don't forget to email us at podcast@ballarddesigns.net.
Now, on with the show. Okay, so our guests this week are Mallory Robbins and Elizabeth Bennett, the design duo behind Kansas City-based KOBEL CO. Mallory and Elizabeth craft intimate spaces that are a unique blend of timeless treasures and modern pieces. Mallory and Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to have you here. I loved getting to go through your portfolio. And also, you know what? We have very few Midwestern designers on the show. We need to fix this. So I'm thrilled you're here.
That's so true.
We agree. Yeah,
We're
we're
thrilled
thrilled to be here. We are certainly excited to represent the Midwest.
So, okay, looking through your portfolio, I felt like it was so moody in like a great way. But then there was also lots of different moods. You know, there were sort of like moody, dark, kind of lush spaces, and there was these bright, open, beautifully lit spaces. And so I was thinking maybe we could talk about like vibes, just how you're capturing, figuring out what vibe each room needs, and really how you execute that and bring that to life in the space. What do you think about that?
Sure.
Yeah. I think one thing that we really harp on in our studio is kind of the way that we start any design process. It doesn't ever start with our clients about like, I want a white kitchen or I want a blue sofa. It starts with how do you want your home to feel? What do you want people who come into your home, your loved ones, like when they come in and it's finished, what do you want them to say about it? What do you want them to feel? How do they experience it? Who lives in this house? What are they like? How do you have dogs? Do you have kids? What's important to you? What are your values? And I think that really sets the foundation for the project and all the fun things that come after it. But we really hold pretty firm to those, adjectives that we kind of pull out at the very beginning through a lot of listening exercises. If someone wants something that they can entertain in, we want to know, how do you entertain? And then that kind of informs more decisions down the road that can lead to, different vibes and moodiness and color palette.
Yeah, there's just something very like, I don't know, like, I just kept thinking like, yeah, vibes. I don't know. It was like there was like a lot of drama in some places, but then there were these beautifully lit sort of light and airy rooms as well. And then a lot of the furniture and upholstery, there was something about the scale that just felt really like, present or something. I don't know. I'm struggling to articulate myself right now.
No,
you're doing great.
I think everything Elizabeth said, I think focusing so much on the beginning on how we want the spaces to feel, I think that really does dictate what you're seeing as the final result. So in some cases it is swanky or moody or intimate. And in other cases it's light, bright, and airy. And a lot of that's impacted by how people want to experience the space and even what phase of life they're in. So maybe they're in a phase of life where they want simplicity, or like clean, not fussy. I would say a lack of fussiness is something that you'll see carried through most of our designs. So even if they're bold and colorful or richly layered, nothing that we put out is really intended to feel fussy or overdone or unlivable.
I think another thing we really try to incorporate is like a sense of like whimsy a little bit, something that doesn't quite take itself so seriously. We're fortunate here in Kansas City to have an absolute plethora of architectural styles and some beautiful, 100-year-old homes plus. And I think sometimes homes of that stature and quality can kind of maybe take themselves a little seriously for maybe a young family. So it's finding that mix of, adequately dressing the home in a way that suits it, but also having a little bit of fun and interjecting some humor and some texture and something a little bit unexpected in each space is something that, Mallory and I we know it's clicked in when we've gotten that mix right. And a lot of that is through art.
Mm-hmm. Do you find your clients have a hard time articulating what vibe and feeling they want to create? Is that a challenge, or do they usually come kind of knowing the answers to those questions?
I would say it's a mix. Some people certainly come to us with a strong sense of what they're looking for. Some need a little more prompting. So I think the Elizabeth kind of alluded to this, that even sometimes putting them in the position of, okay, you finished this project, your sister walks in and she says, Caroline, this room is so, fill in the blank. Like, what are you looking for her to say? Like elegant or relaxing, whatever it is. So sometimes trying to get them to think about how someone else might describe it is a helpful prompt. But a lot of times we'll just use visual imagery to help get them there too, if they don't immediately know.
Yeah. Does this feel right? Does this feel too far? And then also pushing them a little bit. I mean, I think a lot of times clients, when we come back, they'll say, I did not think I could do a lacquered room, or I did not think that I was ever going to like art that was this provocative and kind of thought provoking, but it's my favorite thing in the whole house. I'm so glad you guys pushed us. So I think sometimes listening to who they are, understanding what they're trying to achieve, and then kind of helping them see a version of themselves that maybe they don't see yet.
I'm wondering, have you seen any or experienced any difference in this post-pandemic world that we're living in and how people are wanting to live in their homes?
That's interesting. I think one thing we are seeing more of, and this is probably common across the board, but pre-pandemic, I think the push architecturally was for bigger, more open spaces, more visibility. I think we all found out in the pandemic that doors were a good thing. That being said, I think Elizabeth and I in our studio we like to joke we're pro wall, and always have been. So I'd say a little bit more of an alignment back with that. We like rooms,
firmly,
which is not always aligned with kind of the architectural style that's in vogue at the moment. But I think even if it's, a lot of our projects are renovations, but we do have a good number of new builds as well. So even if we receive an architectural plan for a new build that has generally an open floor plan, sometimes even just giving it a good casing, bringing those openings in a little bit, just a little more definition can allow you to create those unique moods between spaces. If it's too far open, suddenly you're faced with kind of this blending of, 3 to 4 rooms at once, and you lose all of that visual intimacy, the ability to create a mood in any specific space. So bringing walls in is something.
And I think another thing we're finding in almost, Mal, I think it's in almost all of our big projects right now, people are really focusing on entertaining in a very traditional way. I mean, we are putting in bars, like old fashioned freestanding
built
bars, like built to be beautiful, but almost in a lot of these old homes, it almost feels like we're hearkening back to what would have been, or how people would have entertained when the home was built, 100 years ago or 75 years ago, with spaces that are really designed around their intended use. And a lot of that is really hearkening on entertaining and welcoming people in a variety of different ways. And I think we're seeing that in investment in dining rooms. Again, just what Mallory was saying, like making sure that each room has a place to kind of die into so that you have, the ability to have different feelings in different spaces. And then bars. We've been putting in so many like library bars and really beautiful old world sort of pieces.
Yeah, I was going to ask where these bars are going. So they're going in libraries? Are they going in dining rooms?
Great
Are
question.
they going in
libraries, living rooms, a good mix of them. And I think we're seeing a blend of wanting guests to come into their home and potentially feel comfortable self-serving, but also the ability to put someone behind the bar and serve in a way that feels a little bit more formal, whether that's them to their guests or they're thinking about a holiday party where maybe they're bringing someone in to do that. But yeah, a broad mix of that. And I think tangential to that, we're also seeing a swell in what we're calling hostess halls. So areas to store said entertaining pieces, whether that be china or glassware, barware, things like that. So really a harkening back to kind of a historical feeling, an old way of entertaining.
We just really hope they'll invite us over for said beverages.
So is it like a butler's
really
pantry, but like for dishes or?
Kind of, yeah.
No, the ones we're doing now are, they're beautiful. I mean, it's not even, they're meant to be sort of part of the entertaining process. So there's one we're designing right now that it's visible from the dining room. So it'll be lacquered and, be a bold color with beautiful cabinets, but it's a long hallway that, our hostess will be using to store china and display things, with a specific use of serving from. And then one that we just finished in Texas was very similar. It was directly off of the dining room with a beautiful wallpaper, and this space was equally sort of
I love that term,
that space.
Hostess hall.
So again, that formal hostess hall. I know we didn't know what to call it the first time we did it, and we were on the call with the client, and I was like, "It's a hostess hall."
I know
that's amazing.
You coined that, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was that little TM right there.
Okay, what about, so it sounds like that is, a transition space. And then you were mentioning how making some of the casements come in more, making to create that definition. And I'm curious, when you've got maybe a more sort of light, bright kitchen, but then you've got a dark, this is just an example, but a dark, moody dining room. How do you think about transitioning from one room to the other when the vibes are really different? Or is that something you wouldn't do? Put two very different vibes next to each other. Maybe you need to keep them further apart. I don't know.
I don't think we would ever advise like putting like if someone wanted a beachy kitchen and a, European antique living room next to each other, I think that would be something where we try to harken back to the architecture of the home and use that as sort of a guideline tool for clients. Sometimes, you've bought a Georgian colonial, which probably means we're not going to go, Spanish on the inside. So I think using the architecture dictated by the home itself is a good place to kind of start finding answers to some of the problems that we solve throughout the design process. But I think Mallory and I love to do, a bright white kitchen, and then maybe the dining room is incredibly moody and inviting. I think it just has to have that common vernacular architecturally first, whether that's in millwork and, all the trim and the pieces that are attached to the house. And I think lighting is a great unifier. I think lighting can really, there's a large swath of styles, but I think if they don't speak to each other and they don't feel like siblings, you can have a home that feels slightly disjointed. And I don't know if the client knows why. They just know it's not working.
I think also a through line in terms of color palettes. They're not matching by any means, but if there's a wallpaper happening in the dining room, pulling a color out of that wallpaper, using it in an upholstery piece in the living room. So when you're viewing those rooms, let's say you're in a center hall and you're kind of turning left, turning right, they're not sisters, but they're related.
What are like your go-to, if you've got this feeling you want to capture in a room, what are sort of your checklist for hitting that? Like, are there certain things that you're going back? Maybe it is lighting, maybe it's the color, something that like our listeners could sort of a place for them to start when they're trying to capture that feeling?
Yeah, I think, Caroline, you hit on this earlier, but I think scale is something that we are neurotic about, and we'll measure and triple measure and quadruple measure and render it 12 different ways. But I think hitting the scale in a room is one of the most important ways to ensure success. And I think that is often when we visit someone's home and we hear that, I don't know, I tried, it's just not working. Scale is often the culprit. And we often see that when we see families who have maybe moved from the home they purchased as a young couple that was maybe more modest in size. We have a neighborhood that's very popular in that kind of age group where the homes are a little bit smaller in scale. And then, maybe they're having a family and they're moving to a home that's a little bit larger in scale with much taller ceilings. And all of a sudden, the furniture that they brought with them, it looks like a dollhouse in that new house. So nailing the scale in terms of not just the width of the room, but the height of the room, I think is one of the most important things to focus on.
Is there a way around that? Like, I feel like that's probably a challenge a lot of people have in terms of like buying stuff for their house and moving and wanting to reuse it. What are there things you can do to try to get it to work better? Or is it just sort of, I guess it depends, but
I think being
totally willing to let it go.
I think it, yeah, I was going to say, I think you have to be realistic with what it is you're trying to place. If you're trying to put an apartment size sofa in your new house that, however many square feet, and it's just not working, can it fit in a guest bedroom? What are we asking the furniture to achieve? And is it just outside of its ability? Sometimes just being okay to say no. But I think also not feeling stressed to have it perfect right away. Buy the best that you can at that time, no matter what that is, something that you love and it is you feel really solid about. And if it takes you several years over time of finding things and adding things to get it quote unquote finished for you, I think it's a far more successful end product than feeling like you have to finish the entire room with a set budget and then you don't really love anything. And I think Mallory and I find a lot, for clients who are younger or trying to kind of find out what their style is, there's such an amazing plethora of ways now to get vintage pieces that are just, they're built beautifully and you can reupholster them. There's so many options out there to give like a patina and get some character into these homes. But you got to say goodbye to the apartment sofa.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're going from 8 feet to 12 feet, like probably not. But
yeah,
but I love the idea of, put it into a guest room or add it into an office or something. Just find maybe a different home for it. And what about the function and the vibe together? I mean, because obviously we want it to be beautiful, but we want it to function as well. So do those two things ever come, like, are they ever at odds in your projects, and how do you resolve that?
Yeah, I think that those two components are top of mind on every decision, from the architectural layout down to the, furniture and finishes. I think that's probably where Elizabeth and I shine best as a duo. One of us leans more form over function, the other more function over form. And so I think having those two halves
I'll let you guess which one
kind of like, pushing against each other, I think will often help us meet the best common ground there. But yeah, I think having both of those at all times is definitely important.
I don't think we're ever satisfied if something looks beautiful but doesn't function, or if something is functional but it hasn't, doesn't say something.
Well, it's interesting thinking about the function, because a lot of your rooms that I noticed have a lot of furniture in them, but they're very beautifully and edited and add more function to the space, whether it's creating a little nook in the corner for reading, or adding extra stools around for multi-seating within a space.
Yeah.
So how can we maximize, or what pieces should we be getting in our homes to help maximize function of our spaces?
I think a little poof. I mean, a small ottoman, a poof. We tell clients all the time, like, if you've got that holiday, so one of the questions we'll ask is like, how do you want to use this space? Let's say it's a family room or a living room. And maybe they have a family with 2 kids. But where they keep directing the conversation is that one time a year or 2 times a year when they have, 12 people in their house, or, 14. And it's hard. We don't ever want you to have to design for something that happens 2 times a year per se. but we certainly don't want to omit that wonderful experience. So I think small seating, little things you can tuck under consoles, things that have multiple purposes, I think are great ways to add function when needed. And then also great ways to add color and texture when maybe they're not being used or, don't have a tush in them, so to speak, but are adding color and vibrancy and telling a story when tucked under a console or put in the front hallway or things like that. I think those are great ways to kind of add, function to a space while still, having an aesthetic point of view.
Taryn, I am going to give you a chance to jump in because we haven't even heard a peep. No?
Oh, no.
So.
I mean, you guys are covering everything. And looking at your projects, you just use so many finishes. And I think that was one of my questions. Was what are you guys loving recently? Like, what do you guys continue to gravitate towards? And what's something that one of you always picks and the other one rolls the eyes? Because I feel like we all know.
I can think of like three
Go
things.
ahead.
I don't let her go first on this one.
Right away. I don't.
We definitely have a couple artists that we genuinely just love their work, and I think we, do interject us. Mallory is a vegan, and she loves this particular Schumacher fabric of hunting dogs, and I find it so humorous. It's like, is this the project for the dogs? Is this it?
For the record, we've never
one?
actually used the dogs. It's not.
We haven't filled it out
every time.
But if it gets pulled out, is this it? Is today the day?
It's like that needs to be in your house
every time,
Mallory.
Probably. Yeah, I've tried and failed there too. So it might just be out, but I would say we're pretty aligned when it comes to like the artwork in particular. I'd say we're both very much gravitate towards photography. Always looking for new artists that are exciting, but we generally gravitate towards art that makes you think a little bit. We do always say, if the room doesn't have something a little ugly, we've probably done it wrong. We don't want a space to feel too precious. So we like something that's like a little weird.
Like what
in there.
Wait, what, let's pause on that. What would an example be?
Like, go back to ugly. I think it's tension. I think
tension.
Tension. I think if you look at a project we just finished called Let's Get Weird, if we look at like the living room, maybe, there's a lot of really beautiful things in that space when in isolation could go 1,000 different ways in the hands of, other amazing designers. I think in that space, we knew we had to get a couple things in there that had age and patina. So a lot of the accessories are, antiques, and some of the art is, and it had to have something that was really tactile. So there's some really long hair on hide chairs in there. There's a lot of different like wood finishes because that particular client, didn't really want this. They really valued like a collection of things, collected items in there. I think in that space, you don't want it to feel too precious, and you don't want it to feel like you've walked on set. That's something we say all the time in the studio. Like, is it too perfect? Is it too sort of safe? So I think interjecting, vintage art, there's a nude kind of over the banquette in there. The colors in that room, there's a couple of colors. If in isolation you looked at it on its own, it kind of had a pea green, kind of not necessarily a super, vibrant color, but it grounds the space and it adds just a little bit of tension with some of the laurels and things like that. So I think just always being mindful of like, do we have something that's clear that adds like a wetness to the room in acrylic or glass? Do we have something that, do we have a couple of different finishes that coordinate but don't compete? Do we have enough layers in the textiles? It's a delicate dance. I will say that, of making sure that it has some tension and some energy in it without feeling like it's clashing or.
I loved that living room so much. And the thing that was so interesting about it was, and this is kind of what you're saying, but like if you were to remove those 4 floral pillows from the sofa, it would look so, I guess, masculine. I mean, a lot of the elements in it are very masculine. And so seeing those pillows on there, they just like kind of made the space, which is kind of silly to say about 4 pillows, but
no, you're not wrong on that. That particular fabric, we called it our whoopee. We both during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the pandemic apart from each other, and we both had a large sample of it that we kept holding on to, waiting for the right project. And when this one came up, it just felt right. The client, latched onto it. And it does have some of those ugly green colors in it that give it just enough tension. But it was definitely the anchor point for us in that room.
And then as you guys were talking about earlier about like, having a through line kind of through the spaces across the entryway in that house is the dining room, where there's like bold colored rug and some really bold art. But then the curtain in that space is that same floral fabric. So, these are 2 entertaining spaces. It's very important to this family that they have, formal entertaining, and it tied the spaces together, but they feel very different. They feel like their own, that they are connected through.
I love that. I did not clock that the drapes were the same, but that is such a good idea.
It worked in this case. It was just so
and the art in that dining room, which is very abstract, like the one with the typography, I guess, or the handwriting. I don't know what you would call that.
Yeah.
What an unexpected combination, but I love that. This is such a pretty project. I really.
Thank you.
But this is another one where if I just seeing the imagery, it's just like so vibey. I don't know. I can't come up with another. I need to come up with another word, but I can't find one.
I like vibey. Vibey word.
Yeah.
There's just there's that, sort of there's like lots of dark and light, I suppose, in there, which I think helps it feel like I can imagine at nighttime when the lights are really dim, it probably feels like really warm and cozy and like cocoon light. But then on a bright day, it feels light and bright. So that's kind of probably a tricky like balance to hit, so that both in daylight it feels great, but also in nighttime it feels really good too.
Well, I think Elizabeth alluded to this earlier, but lighting and layered lighting, I think, is just a core component of any room we do. So you'll often note a mixture of a ceiling fixture, wall sconces, picture lights. We are frequent users of picture lights, lamps, floor lamps, table lamps. I think having lighting coming from different points in the room does allow you to shift that mood as the day continues, and not really having any time where you're necessarily dependent on recessed lighting per se.
Probably one of the quickest things anyone can do at home to make their home feel, especially going into the holidays, cozy and special, is just to go get some lamps. Turn the overhead fixtures off and really like embrace layered lighting.
Dimmers. Warm bulbs.
I love it when the contractor's like, are we dimming
everything on a dim?
Dimming everything.
Everything.
Every single
Not a question.
question.
If they question it, that contractor's fired. Like immediately, if you don't know.
Right? I know. It's like, I'm not even listening to that question.
Okay, I also loved the way that you style your spaces. So tell me, and then I saw on one of your, I think it was it one of your, I guess sort of like bios on your website talked about the zhuzh. So tell us about the zhuzh at the end. What are you doing? And are there any sort of takeaways, tips that our listeners could try on their own to kind of up their game a little bit?
For sure. I think if you haven't guessed already which one of us is function and which one of us is form, it's one of my toxic traits is that I'm a little bit of a procrastinator when it comes to some of the big decisions. I want so badly for it to be the right choice that sometimes I drag my feet in, sending it down into our kind of production team. But it is something I love most about our process, that Mallory and I, at the very end of a project, and we're getting ready to do this for a beautiful house we're finishing in about a month, we kind of wait to do the accessorizing until the very end. And it allows us to we've walked this house, we've been working on it for 2 years, we know it inside and out, we know the furniture is coming, we know what it looks like, but the house starts to get its own kind of soul and it's coming alive. And if we wait until that point, it forces us also to kind of shop locally. So we really rely on that final level, that final layer, to be a lot of vintage pieces, a lot of vintage accessories, a lot of pieces that come with their own patina, kind of bring it to the party. And that sometimes is small side tables that we see, small stools, baskets. There's a lot of marble ashtrays you can find, which are great, like just catch-alls, whether on a coffee table with matchbooks in them or on an entryway for keys. But it's that final layer at the very end that even after we've styled the whole house, those pieces are the ones that just like put the cherry on top. And you can go to any flea market, any antique store. It does not have to be expensive stuff. Some of our favorite pieces are, things we bought for maybe $5, and they're perfect. And they add that soul at the end, that little bit of dirt.
I feel like that's not people's go-to like place to find accessories is a flea market or an antique store. So I love that idea.
Yeah, it does.
There's great stuff.
I think in that final layer, you're not really, often when we're building a room, when we're doing the furniture and we're doing the rug sizing and we're doing the drapery, we're designing it, but we're also solving a problem. We need a way to see a certain number of people or be able to see a television or see a view, or have a conversation. I think in accessorizing, you're not really solving a problem so much as acquiring pieces that are of interest to you, whether they make sense in that room or not. So they've got a color, or texture, or shape to them that stands out to you and caught your eye for whatever reason. And in purchasing them, sometimes when we do that final layer and we're going around to the antique stores, sometimes we pick something up and think, oh, this would be perfect for such and such. And sometimes it's just we have a big haul of things and we bring them on site and we just kind of play with it. So it doesn't always necessarily have to be the perfect piece for a perfect spot. And I do find that sometimes we see clients do this. I am often guilty of it in my own home. We kind of like laser focus on a certain spot. I've got this console, figured out which lamps I want. I bought the right mirror, but what goes in this one spot? And they're kind of laser focusing to find the right thing rather than just looking for things that excite them and then playing with where that might make the most sense in their house and then feeling the freedom to actually move it around. I mean, if you want your home to feel fresh over time, I think even just rearranging some of the things you already own is an easy way to do so.
I also think a pair of gardening shears in your car at all times, because every photo shoot, my team knows, every photo shoot, it's like, who's coming with me?
Trespassing today.
Well,
I can't do it. I'm too much of a rule follower.
Mallory won't do it. She's way too much of a rule follower. But I'm like, it's the median. It belongs to the city.
I love it. I was going to ask.
They need to be pruned, Mallory. They need to be pruned.
We should need to be getting a tax credit for our work, for our labor.
There is nothing better when you're styling your house than just a beautiful branch of something in a vintage vase. It can look like $1 million.
I feel like the branches on the side of the road are always a key element that makes a room. We have discussed that many times because when you look at imagery, there's always something living in a space. And sometimes it's just tree branches. It is there. And sometimes it's gorgeous florals, but that isn't, easy enough for everyone. So I love the idea of just shears with you at all times.
She does.
They're always in my car. I've been known
great
to
weapon too if you are ever in trouble.
Yeah. You
shake them out for bugs outside before you bring them in.
Good advice, though.
Yeah, that's
good key advice. Yes. I wanted to touch on your kitchens, just because you have so many beautiful kitchens, and most are actually, I would say, generally white. And I know that we have, there's of course been a resurgence of colored kitchens. But you have really made these white kitchens stand out and feel profound and different. What can somebody do that, who wants a white kitchen, because a lot do, but to make it special like you guys do?
That's so kind of you to say, first and foremost. Our team works really hard on kitchens. I think kitchens are like my favorite thing to do. I think we're also pro white kitchen. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think we have heard a lot of like buzzwords about white is so transformative. There are so many whites, and it can change, and it changes at night, and it changes with lighting, and it changes if you pair it with wood, or it changes if you, just paint it all out white. We've just finished one teal kitchen and one green kitchen that we haven't shared yet. But I think white is transformative. I think a white paint at night can look glowy. I think make sure you have the right white for what you are trying to achieve. And that goes back to kind of your project DNA and, how you want to live and how you want your space to feel. If it's more modern, maybe pick a clean white, like there's a pure white is a white we use a lot in a cleaner space. But if you're trying to add some warmth and age to your home, I think one of our new favorite whites we've been using a lot is by Farrow and Ball, and it's called Wimborne White. And it's just the most beautiful milky white. And at night it glows. It's just, I think the right white is the key to it not feeling boring or like anybody else.
I think something else we think about in kitchens in particular, well, any room really, is just what's the star in the room? If we always say, if everything's the star, nothing's the star. So if we've gone with a stone that really has a point of view, cabinets probably don't also need to shine in the same way. So sometimes having just kind of a good clean white or warm white that just does its job. It's not yelling, look at me, is a good thing. Whether it's the stone that's the star or the range or some lighting, kind of where your eye's supposed to go. And then on top of that, I would just say, I think trying to be timeless, interesting, but timeless in our designs is always forefront of our minds, but particularly in spaces where you are building in cabinetry. So kitchens, primary baths, areas that are a big investment in your construction process. I would say we tend to skew more towards something that will have longevity. We don't want people ripping out kitchens in 5, even 10 years. These should go past the sort of the trend of the moment, and feel like something that represents the family, harkens to the architectural style of the house, and can really grow with their family.
Okay, so I've been seeing a lot of really textural, bold marbles, and I know that you've used some in some of your projects. What is the right place for those? Is it the kitchen? Is it an island only? Like, where do we want to make that statement with marble?
I'm so glad too that I think people are becoming a little more daring in letting stone speak to them and kind of not just going for the same thing that, everyone's picking, everyone's kitchen kind of looks the same. I think we're really fortunate that right now, whether it's clients in Florida, we have Texas, here in the Midwest, the stone availability is so broad. There are so many amazing options in natural stone. And Mallory and I, and the whole studio, we're very much a pro natural stone, studio. But I think statement marble can really go anywhere. I think it's great if you don't want to commit to the kitchen. It's a huge investment. If you're conscientious of whether it's a budget, everyone's got a budget. If it's a price point thing or it's something you want to make sure you love it forever. I think a coffee table, side tables, you can have some amazing, get that marble moment in something, that's a bit smaller in scale, but still, comes to the party and kind of brings its own energy. But I also think there are beautiful ways to make a very bold stone feel more traditional. We always tell clients like these stones are not new. They've been around in Europe forever. We're looking at them with fresh eyes now. So it's just beautiful stone. So long as you love it and it speaks to you, I think, we're thrilled to design around it.
Stone is maybe more so than even any other selection in the build process, an area where we are looking for the client to have a bit of a love match. They're seeing something and really falling in love with it. And because it's a surface they not only see every day, but they interact with too. So wanting to make sure that they truly love it. We are often dropping anchor on stone before we're doing any other development in stone heavy areas like kitchens, because that will kind of dictate the rest of the design sort of around that area.
Do you go to the stone yard? But do you go with something in mind, or do you, like with the client, to just let them fall in love, or are they kind of going and thinking like, oh, I want white marble, and then finding a white marble they like?
I think it's kind of 50-50. I think sometimes at this point, if we're going to the stone yard, we've had several meetings. Like Mallory and I have our guesses, of like where I think the house is going. But we really do tell the client before we go out into the stone yard, like, you are going to see things today that you absolutely hate, and that's great. And we need to know that. And you don't have to know why you don't like it, but let's talk through what you don't like. And then you might find stone. It almost always happens that you find something that
and it often surprises them.
And it often surprises them, but I can't even really think of a time that we haven't had that kind of love match connection. That when you see it, and we just hope it's not on hold for someone else. That's the dance that we are typically doing, is sort of this.
That is so interesting. I don't think anyone has ever told us that before, that they pick the countertop first, or at least like very early, and then really design around that. But that is a great tip.
It's so tone setting.
You can't necessarily guarantee what you're able to get, so you may as well pick that first instead of trying to shoehorn in something that maybe doesn't go with everything else you picked.
True.
Also, it protects the client too, because I think if we walk in and someone falls in love with a Calcutta Gold or a crema or whatever it is, and for some reason, because what we always, will say is that natural stone is like a loaf of bread, right? So it's different slices of one loaf, but there are lots of different loaves with different, striping and coloration and patterning. But if they fall in love with a specific lot of stone and it's not available to them, picking that first allows our team time in the build process to find other bundles that do work for them, because it's one of the biggest, budget items in terms of investment. So we want to make sure that if you fell in love with that stone, if you can have it, fantastic. If you can't, we've got time to find something just as wonderful for you and bring it in.
I didn't do it that way. I'm kind of jealous.
I didn't do it that way for my house either. So 10 years ago, I was like, do you have
right now?
Yeah. Do it today? Now? Okay, that's great.
So some lucky listeners like, you know what? I hadn't thought of that. They're going to win.
No, don't do as I do. Do as I say.
Are there any things that you think every room needs?
Art. I think every room should have art.
Art for sure. I think that's one of the things we love doing most are kids' rooms, kids' spaces. And we get a lot of questions about the kids' rooms. And I think the biggest differentiator is thinking of children's rooms as places that really inform who they are and shape who they are. I don't think all kids' rooms have to be kind of dumbed down to a kid's space. I mean, we put real art in, almost all of the rooms that we do. And I think it elevates the space and gives it a playfulness, but also I think we really love to think of these spaces for children as really shaping who they are at a young age. It's a privilege for us to get to do kids' rooms, and it's one of the spaces I think we have the most fun. I think we really shine at it because most people are, do things for their kids that they wouldn't necessarily do for themselves in terms of color. So that's one of the best things you can do is really go for it in kids' rooms with art.
You have had so much fun with your color combos in kids' rooms. This the chartreuse and soft blue, and then you had the mauve in one of the bedrooms with the rug that was a teal, shade of teal, mint. Anyway, it was so good.
2 of those kids' rooms are siblings too. So it's funny to see they really wanted their kids. A lot of the rooms are siblings, but it's funny how our clients will come to us with very clear understanding of who their children are and what they want it to be. We had one client where the baby was clearly mid-century. They told us, they were just like, he's mid-century. We were like, okay.
Where did that come from?
But I think when they had 3 kids and they're the most amazing clients. they wanted to do their kids' rooms before they did anything else on the rest of the house. And they had one daughter who was very creative, so we really leaned into like color and gave her a custom, art desk and really cool llama art. And then their oldest boy was a bit more maybe a thinker, kind of the bringer together. So his room has a sofa that kind of all the kids can come in, and his room leans a little bit more traditional. And then the baby's mid-century. So
the baby's
telling you that,
is that the room with the dinosaurs and the bright yellow?
That.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is so fun.
Yeah.
All your kids' spaces are truly really creative and beautiful and colorful. So I definitely recommend that. The bathroom you have in your kids section with you guys have to see this. It is this dark, gorgeous green tile, white grout. You have chartreuse towel, like the gold, like the colors are just so chef's kiss against that wallpaper. That's outside of it.
Okay, but let's talk about how it's styled out, though, because I love the way that you style your kids' rooms.
Yes. Are you going to talk about the toilet paper?
Because it's realistic. The toilet paper is like rolling onto the floor. There's toothpaste like squeezed on the countertop.
So much.
I don't think we've ever had
about
really
online over a
oh my God, I love
the
that
unrolled toilet paper. People have strong feelings.
That's hilarious.
That was a little boy's room, and I have a little boy. And when we were styling it, our photographer is one of our great partners in our business. And I was like, I think we should just go for it. Like,
I don't see really pee on the floor.
With beautiful toothpaste. I mean, it took me like a couple tries.
Oh no, it's perfectly done.
I also have two little boys, and I'm
bathroom.
Like, well, I can add one more element that you guys were very classy about. So I appreciate the toothpaste and the toilet paper.
Uh-huh. Well, girl, that's why the walls are tiled.
Preach.
Right? I mean, there have been a lot of times when we're talking about function, and it's like, well,
wipeable.
Have you thought about tile in there? Because you should. It's a beautiful space. Yeah.
We have a question from Lauren. She says, my husband and I bought our first house last year, and I have had so much fun decorating it and incorporating ideas from the podcast. Thanks, Lauren. That's so nice. When you first walk into our house, our office library is on the left and formal dining on the right. We decorated the office and painted it the slate tile color I'm obsessed with. I have finishing touches like wall art to do in the office, and I think I want to reorient the desks. But the thing that is really stumping me is rugs in both the office and the nearby dining room. I bought these cheap white ones just to cover the floor temporarily about a year ago, but I'm now on the hunt for replacements. I'm not sure color-wise what might look good. I was looking at the Ballard Catherine rug, and I'm curious on your opinion on that. Also, and the biggest question I have is, in a space like this, should all the rugs be the same or just coordinate? So depending on the rug, would I need to replace that front door runner? Please excuse my Halloween decor prep. Thank you. All right. So she has sent us some pictures, of course. We've got the dark sort of slate blue office of hers. And then there's, yes.
Great color, really pretty.
It is a pretty color.
Great job.
Yeah, good job.
It's hard to photograph like a gray blue. So I'm impressed that it photographs so nicely.
For sure.
And then in her dining room, which is across the entryway from this slate blue office, is sort of a taupey wall with a wood table, white Parsons chairs, and she's got these sort of white rugs underneath. So, Mallory and Elizabeth, what do you think?
First, shout out to our one of our all-time favorite rugs from Ballard, which is the Dory Sisal rug.
It's a good one. Yeah.
That rug is subtle. I have it in my dining room. It has a subtle patterning, but I think it has a lot of visual interest. It has this kind of
wave or something.
I don't know, conch.
Yeah, kind of like a mermaid tail.
Mermaid tail is a great way to describe it. Mermaid tail that gives a lot of texture while still remaining neutral. That is like our go-to.
And it's relatively soft for sisal, in my opinion. It's not quite as
it's not like
glassy.
Not like walking on broken glass that sometimes sisal can do. So that number one is like our all-time gold standard rug in any space. And I think when Mallory and I were kind of looking through your question, Lauren, I think something to think about in spaces that speak to each other visually, where you have the same line of sight through, is maybe considering anchoring your office and your dining room with something like the Dory sisal rug, but in the right size. So make sure you get that scale right. You want to make sure that all the furniture is kind of touching the island or is on the island. It'll make your space feel so much bigger. But then if you wanted to have a statement runner or something that kind of unifies the colors between the two spaces, if you wanted to kind of blend those, I think something like the patterning and color in the Catherine is beautiful, but maybe letting that entryway piece sort of have the color of its own. I think that's a really nice welcoming spot too. And then using two more, I don't want to say basic, but really grounding rugs in the dining room and
textural versus heavily patterned
office. Well, yeah, textural versus patterned will, I think, make the spaces feel larger and also make them feel like really well counterpointed. And then you can let your textiles and your window treatments, your artwork, your pillows, all of those other things that can seasonally change, kind of bring the personality to the two rooms, but let that runner in the middle sort of be the unifier of the palettes. But give yourself a really great base layer that no matter the season, it's going to look, tipped and tied is sort of what we always say, very tailored.
Yeah, it also comes in a lot of sizes. So that's nice because I think it goes up all the way to like 12 by
10.
18. So you can get it to really fit your space, which is nice.
And it's beautiful in person. It really does have the most interesting pattern on it.
Is there anything else you would do in either of her spaces?
Well, I'm mostly intrigued by these windows. As best I can tell, she's got big, beautiful windows in both spaces, and I think it looks like she's already created that through line by using maybe the same drapery in both spaces, and I think that's a great add-on. I think her inclination to consider reorienting the desks, we would support that. I think these bookshelves, I don't know if these were added to the house or in the house when she moved in, but I think those are an amazing statement when you walk in the front door. So making sure that is seen as kind of the star of the room, the focal point of the room. And it looks like she's got an incredible collection of books and accessories to work with. So something we often like to do on bookshelves like that is, rather than just having our books vertically, considering really beautiful tailored stacks of them horizontally as well. And there's a project on our site, Eurostar, that has a library in it where it's purely stacked horizontally. And I think something like that could be really incredibly done on these shelves here. But the fact that she already owns the amazing scaled pieces, I think is fantastic. We often see, again, with bookshelves, we see people underscaling the things on them, and it looks like the things she has are already of a good scale, which is awesome.
And when she's thinking about moving your desks around, I'm curious, in that office that's off of your entry, thinking about creating zones when you kind of are looking into the space. I don't know if the two desks could fit kind of close to the window on opposite walls, and then the seating area could kind of come and be part of the bookcase. So you kind of, when you walk into the house, the desks, because we've all got bills and things on our desks, are kind of tucked towards the front. You have to enter the space to kind of see it. But when you walk in across from your dining room, you have maybe what appears to be like a beautiful lounge. You could have a cocktail in there. You could read a book. You could get a nice, coffee table kind of, or ottoman to kick your feet up on. You've created another entertaining space while not losing, the functionality that we all need, like an office.
I think that is such a good idea. Yes, it almost is like hiding the desk a little bit. Just, it's not like right in your, it's not like the first thing you're going to see if you put those leather chairs in front of the bookcase, or at least on that side of the room. And then you'd have to turn around to see the desk. Yeah, that is so smart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially during the holidays,
Yeah.
People are coming in.
That is the bummer
it all away.
for me of you have to have a clean office, because
right,
people are going to see this. I say this as I hoard in the back corner of my house, like a little pack rat. But thank you.
You're not alone.
The only thing I definitely wanted to, tell this listener is she needs some office lighting. And I was going to also recommend, we have some great bookshelf lights too that we sell that you, So anyway, the lighting, I think it might be, she just had the overhead light on for the photo, but if you only have overhead light, girl, treat yourself to tons of lighting in there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Or some of those little, Taryn, you just bought some of these, and I have some too. Those little LED ones that are like under 18 inches that
they're so versatile.
You're not going to have those on all the time, but at least if someone's coming over, you could just like pop them on and then.
Totally.
Well, you guys also have that amazing the Ivy.
Yes, yeah. That's what. Yeah,
that was the one I brought up.
Yeah.
It's so.
That's the bookshelf lamp,
which is so amazing because with those bookcases, if you put those leather chairs over there and get yourself an ottoman and a stone side table, you're getting a little acrylic something for a little something wet and kind of shiny, and then put some of those with a patterned lampshade. Good night. That would be so cute. And those are genius. That product is genius because you can get a sconce without feeling like you have to hardwire for it. So those are amazing.
right? And they double as a bookend. They're just great.
Genius. I should actually. I need those for my son's room.
I've been wanting to put one right here. I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Do it.
It's coming. Oh my gosh. Thank you all so much. This was what a delightful afternoon. This was so fun. Thank you.
You guys are both beautiful and your work's beautiful. And we just appreciate your banter. And
that's so kind of you guys. What a way to end a Friday, right?
Exactly. Will you tell everyone where they can find you and follow you?
Yes. You can find us at KOBELandCO.com, and then you can follow us on Instagram, KOBEL and Co. KOBELANDCO.
Amazing.
I've never been asked
What is our handle?
You can find us in Kansas City.
Yeah, you don't have to give personal addresses. Yeah, no home.
Yeah. I think someone did once give their phone number, and it was hilarious. You don't have to give us your personal cell number. And that's our show. You can find all of the show notes on our blog, howtodecorate.com/podcast.
To send in a decorating dilemma, email your questions to podcast@ballarddesigns.net so we can help you with your space.
And of course, be sure to follow us on social media at Ballard Designs.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Until next time, happy
decorating.